Hey YouTube, welcome back. It's been getting colder. It's the end of September. It's about time we start firing up our wood stoves. So the other day, after inspecting the chimney and the piping, stovepipe, I decided I was going to fire up the stove, and I wasn't very impressed with it. Now this is a Quadra-fire 5700 step-top ACC model. Quadra-fire claim to fame is that the stoves burn cleaner, burn hotter, burn longer. So the firebox is super tight. It's sealed very good. And after reading about the controls, how to operate the stove, I lit a fire. Again, I wasn't impressed. It seemed hard to control. When I used the controls on the stove, it didn't seem to make a huge difference in the way it burned. It was just like it kind of burned, and that was it. I couldn't control it. So I'm suspecting that the air passages are filled up with ash, and they're blocked to some extent, so where it doesn't get the air that it needs to burn. So today we're going to tear this down. Go through all the air passages. We're going to check them out, clean them out. We'll get the shop vac and clean everything up. So hopefully this fixes it. If not, I still have a lot to learn about this stove. So let's get started. So you'll have to watch the bottom burn control here. Pull that down and get the cover off of that. And then it looks like it's hinged up here. So there's two tabs. See if we can get you guys so you can see this. There's two tabs in there. One right here, and then there's another one right here that hold that side on. So if we can pull that out of there. I guess that's it. So yeah, there's a little bit of crud in there. So we have, so that would be low. And this controls the rear air damper. So that's where that opens, closes there. So when you push this all the way back, it connects to the linkage to the timer, and then you pull it forward, and then this timer should run and slowly close the front air, which is up here. So that's how that should work. And like I said, my timer doesn't seem to be working properly. So the rear air passages are the holes in the back right there. And then the front air passage is one single hole there in the front. See it or not. There it is right there. So that's a single hole for the startup air, and that's all you got. And then the top air just opens this up from full to closed. And then that air goes into the top of the stove and comes out of those holes you see right there. So we're going to start by cleaning all of this out. Looks like there's some debris up in there. And then the front one looks pretty clean, but we're going to vacuum it all out also. And then we're going to pull this timer off and see if there's anything we can do to fix that, to get it working again. So we're going to pull off these two dampers. So it looks like this one, if we pull this screw out right here, it'll allow that to open farther. We can take this linkage off, and then we can slide this tab out through the slot right there. So just pulling the screw out will not let this turn far enough to where we could pull this rod up off of there. So what we're going to do is disconnect that rod back here on this end. So we're going to lift up on this guy, push that pin back. Now he's disconnected. Then we're going to pull this off of the linkage for the timer. Just bend that linkage back just a little bit. It's not bending it, it's just pushing it over. And now we're free back here. And then still something that's, it's like we'll have to take this out first, and then we can pull the rod up and out of the way. So we'll work on that. Okay. So I lifted this up and over and down. I lifted this piece here up and over this pin, and now I can turn that all the way and slide that out of there. And now the timer's going to start ticking again. So now that that's out, I can lift this off. Still, there's not quite enough room to get that out. So I might have to take and bend this tab back a little bit to get the rod up off of this pin right here. So now the timer rod is out. Actually, I may not even have to take it out. I think I can get the shop vac in there and clean it out with it in. So I just don't want to bend that back and forth a couple times, because that'll just weaken the metal. So this is probably a replaceable part here as well. So this is just some, like a kind of gasket material. It's almost like a consistency of a ceramic cloth or something, probably fireproof. You see this one has like a flat spot on it. But that could probably be tightened up so that it'll make better contact and more consistent seal when it closes in there. Doesn't look terrible, but I'll tighten that up and then I'll get new ones for later this winter when I shut it down and clean everything up again. This disc has definitely seen better days. You can see where it's turned and seated multiple times in different spots, kind of oval shaped. So that could be part of the problem. If we're not sealing that up, then we're not gonna stop the air from flowing if we want to go super low. But that's definitely one of the causes that we're seeing. So, even though I vacuumed that out, we've still got a mountain of crud in there. That should be straight all the way across. I'll move the light here so you can see that. But there's still a lot of stuff in there, so I'm gonna get a wire coat hanger and stick in there and try to loosen all that up, and then I'll hit it with the shop vac again. So here we are with the Stove Cleaner 3000 Pro. I just patented it. You can't copy it, but use something similar. So that pulled a lot of stuff out of there. I'll vacuum it up and we'll see if it looks any better. So there's still a wall of ash in there. I'm gonna do some more cleaning. So you can see there's a ton of it in there. So it was, I went in and scraped like just straight along the bottom, and it was actually like bridged up higher and packed in there tight. So we'll have to probably do this a couple times until we get that chamber all cleaned out in there. Alright, so that looks a lot better. There's just a little bit in the bottom there, but I'm not too worried about that. So next, we're going to pull off the timer, and we're going to see if we can't get that working without buying a new one. You can order the parts for them, but I like to try to fix stuff. Okay, so after about 5 minutes and a few choice words that probably shouldn't air on YouTube, I decided I was going to pull the back panel completely off. So what I had to do was take the other side off, the other side of the stove, and then once that side plate is off, there are 7 screws in the back plate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's one right here in the center, 7. This is looking at the inside, but on the outside. So the timer, which is now ticking away, you have this arm that's welded onto a nut onto the shaft, and then there's a very small nut right there that we're going to have to take off, and then we'll be able to pull the timer off of the back of the stove. So I got the nut loosened up, and in the side of the arm right here is a set screw that holds the arm onto the shaft, and the shaft is flat where the set screw goes. So we're going to loosen up that set screw, pull the arm off, get the nut off the rest of the way, and then the timer will be free from the back plate of the stove. Okay, got that off. Nut off, and here's our timer. But we're going to tear it apart, we're going to see what's inside, see why it's not ticking, and see what we can do to fix it. So be careful of that spring there. Definitely don't want that guy to pop out and go flying. But it doesn't look to me like there's anything we can really do in here. Like that looks like very tiny gears in there. They're all brass by the looks of them. Try to wind it up. See if we can get it moving. Okay, so I got this all blown out with the air compressor. It's been ticking along here for, well, I wound it up all the way, and then it's been ticking along here for about a half hour. So I think like the timer works. I'm wondering now if it's the arms or the slider that's binding up and causing it to stop. So I'm thinking that it's more the slide mechanism and the connecting arm has enough friction that it's not letting this tick forward, so that slider has to be easily moved to let this push it closed slowly over time. So I'm going to put this back together, start putting the stove back together, and then we'll try to figure out what's holding this up. Okay, well, we got this on. The back plate timer still working. So we're going to go ahead and start putting everything back together. Shouldn't take too long. Like I said, I am going to order one of these. You can see where that's all chewed up over time, and you can see where it's covered in ash, because these holes in the air holes in the back of the firebox, so every time you go to push wood into there or throw wood into there, if you don't keep it cleaned out, all that ash is going to end up going back into those air channels, and that's why that got packed up in the back. So we're to make sure we keep this cleaned out on a regular basis, and then replace both of these gaskets front and back, and then you keep on top of it, keep it in good shape. So first we're going to put the linkage onto the front damper. Bend this tab back again. Make sure you got the linkage the right way. This arm should be facing the stove. I'm just going to lay this back in here. And then when you put this arm back in, there's a hole. I don't think you can see it, but there's a hole in the end of that linkage that comes off the timer. We're going to want to put this right in that hole. That way when we push it back, it moves it back, and we can override it by reaching to the back of the stove and pulling this forward to close that before the timer runs out. So that's back in that hole. We are back on the pin here, and we'll keep assembling from there. There's that. Now for our rear, slide that into the slot. And once it's in, we're just going to turn it. Right there is all the way closed. I'm going to move our damper control back a little bit, and then lift up on this and put it in the pin into the slider. So it looks like that. Alright, well, we're all set here. We're going to put the side cover back on. We got to put the side cover on the other side, and then we're ready to fire it up when it cools down again. So make sure that when you put the side plate on, that you pull this down and onto the outside of the cover, because it does stick up just a little bit. Now, the other thing you guys are going to want to do when you're cleaning your stove is make sure that all of these ports are cleaned out. And these air tubes, some people call them the grill tubes, I've seen in the forums. You want to make sure they're all cleaned out. These look pretty good. I cleaned them out before I burned it the first time. The other thing, a maintenance item is the up on top of the air tubes, pull that metal plate out, and then we'll pull out the ceramic blanket and the fireboard that's up there. It's like a ceramic baffle board, they call it. You can see it up there above the tubes. It just rests on the tubes. So you can get some ash buildup up in there on top of that blanket and block the airway that goes up in there. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that's what it looks like. So we'll go back into the stove here again in a couple months after we burned it for a little while. I'm going to be getting some new fire brick for it. This fire brick has seen better days. It's well used. That'll probably be sooner rather than later, but I'll post a video on that when we do the fire brick replacement, show you how to do that. So hopefully the stove will burn better now. It's supposed to be 70 degrees today, so I'm not going to light a fire today, but I'll post a short video when I get this thing up and burning, and we'll see how it acts. So thanks for watching YouTube. Like and subscribe, help me out a little bit to get this channel growing, and we'll see you next time.